Hello, my name is Stephen Holm and I'm with Homegrounds, and if you're new around here, I just want to say welcome. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, liking the video, leaving a comment down below, letting us know what you'd like to see us make, that would all be really appreciated. Alright, so let's hop right into this grinder. This is the Fiorenzato F4 All Ground. And I do want to say this is on loan to me from Chris's Coffee, so I want to give a big shout out to them for loaning me this grinder and a machine to work with as I experiment and figure out what espresso gear I want at my own home. They've been a great resource. They have plenty of machines and grinders, everything you'd ever need right on their website. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. So once again, thank you, Chris's Coffee. I'm going to go ahead and list off some specs of this grinder before we hop into the features and performance of it. So it has a pair of flat 64mm burrs in there. They are red speed titanium coated. If you don't know what any of that means, they are good burrs. They claim to have a 1400 kilo lifetime, so they will last quite a while, and they spin at 1600 RPM. It has a nice 250 watt motor in here, and it outputs about 7 grams of coffee per second. That obviously depends on your grind setting. It comes in a few different colors. This one is the white with walnuts, and those colors range from $1,050 US to about $1,200. Now I'll give a quick rundown of the features and everything we have out here. So we have a hopper up here. I think this is a 1 pound capacity hopper. It's nice, no complaints there. We have the collar to adjust your grind setting. The burrs are accessible right through here. You can actually easily take this off by turning it all the way to its coarsest setting, pressing down this pin that just came out and twisting again. Collar comes right out. The upper burr comes out and you can access your burrs right there super easily. Now right below the collar here we have a screen, which I'll get into more detail later, but overall it's a really nice touch screen. It is nice touch sensitive. It all works super well. We have a removable tube dispenser thing there. Portafilter spout, portafilter forks. This is adjustable. I was able to adjust it to any size portafilter that I have. And then a basic on-off switch over here. And then lastly, the machine does come with this holder here that you can just insert right in there and it catches grounds nicely. We'll get into more of that later. So when you first turn the grinder on, you are greeted with a little message and a QR code so you can scan it and get more info on how to use it. And then after that, we get into the home screen. Now what's interesting about this grinder is on the ring collar here and the screen, you have 3 distinct sections of grind settings. We have espresso, mocha pot, and filter. And each of those is going to have a different corresponding screen depending on what setting you're on. So for example, we're in the mocha pot setting right now. If I turn more, now we are in the filter. Turn back to mocha. If we keep going, now we're in espresso. And each of those screens is going to operate a little bit differently. Now the difference between filter and mocha pot is interesting. Where in the filter setting, how it's gonna work is you press the start grinding button, and that's gonna keep going until you press that button again. But then once you go over to the mocha pot area, it looks the same and you feel like it should behave the same. But in this one, when you hit the button, it only grinds for how long you're holding down on the button. So I don't really know why they decided to do that. It's not a deal breaker or anything, it's just a weird design choice. Now the espresso screen is very intuitive, it makes sense. We have buttons for double espresso, single. You have a manual where you can just hold down for as long as you need for those short little bursts. And then you're able to adjust each of those by holding down, and it brings you up to a screen where you can add more or less time. So now that we've gone over all the features and how it works, let's talk about all the things that I really like about this grinder. And probably the most important one is that it grinds really well. And by that I mean all the grounds look really consistently ground, We don't have a bunch of boulders or a bunch of fines lying in there. All the grounds seem fairly consistent. We also have pretty much no clumping in this grinder, which on the espresso setting is better than any of the Malconid commercial grinders I've used in a cafe. I preferred not to use any RDT or any distribution really. You pretty much just need to grind into your basket and immediately tamp. There are no clumps. It distributes the grounds really well into your basket. I'm also really happy with all the different grind settings. I'll throw up on the screen what it looks like going from the coarsest setting all the way to the finest. The coarsest, as you can see, isn't super coarse, but it's more than I would ever need. And the finest is finer than you would ever need for espresso. It would work for Turkish coffee as well. Now, obviously, the grinder isn't perfect, so let's talk about some of the things I didn't particularly love about it. First off, this little holder thing here, it's nice in that when the forks are all the way in the bottom setting, this slides in and the rubber fits really nicely on the dispensing part of the grinder. However, if the forks are up at all, then it doesn't work as well. You can see like right now it kind of gets stuck right there. And then also, I get what they were trying to do by providing no space for coffee to escape, but a bunch of coffee gets stuck on this rubber top here. I didn't really find myself using this very much, but that's a pretty small thing. I didn't need this touchscreen, although with the like mocha and filter pot things, it was a little weird, but I liked using the touchscreen. It was very consistent with the amount of time dispensing grounds. The only thing I really don't like is on the espresso setting. If I'm grinding and say I just need like 0.1, 0.2 grams more, you would usually just tap the top on the manual setting and just grind out a small amount. The smallest amount this grinder will do is about 0.7 to 0.8 grams. I just wish I could dispense a smaller amount of coffee at a time. Now, probably the one thing that will deter some people from buying this grinder is that it is not designed to be a single dose grinder. If you're wondering what that means, well, a lot of companies now are putting out grinders designed for the home market that are single dose, meaning you weigh out the amount of coffee that you're going to use for your one shot of espresso or your one pour over. You pour that into the grinder, you grind it, and it's done. There is little to no retention, meaning grounds left between what you put in and what comes out. And you are able to easily change between grind settings, so you can use it for, say, espresso and switch right to a pour over. And my original problem with this grinder was that I was trying to use it as a single dose grinder. I was trying to pull a couple shots of espresso and then switch it over to filter to make a pour over because it has the settings for all of those and it has the ability to do that. The only issue is that there is some grind retention in this grinder. About 2 to 3 grams of coffee is getting stuck in there that you're not able to get out unless you use some sort of bellows, which there may be one out there designed specifically for this size. I happen to have one that I use in a different grinder that I would just throw on here and pop out, and you can see that just pumped out like 2 grams of coffee. And if you keep doing that, you can see all the coffee grounds that are stuck up there. Yeah, if you are able to find a bellows for this grinder, I think it could work for that. But this grinder wasn't designed to be a single dosing grinder, so I don't think it's really fair to me to count that as a disadvantage against it. But I just want you to know, if you're watching this, wanting a grinder to do that, this may not be the best choice for you. I think how this grinder is meant to be used is for someone who is going to fill the hopper, dial in an espresso or a pour over recipe, and they are going to keep brewing with that exact thing, maybe making small changes in your grind setting, but not going from espresso, pour over, espresso, pour over. Now, a couple other little things that are just quirks that maybe I wish were changed. First off, on the collar here, you are able to see your grind setting only by circles, and then the lines that are sort of dividing the 3 sections. I wish they were numbers. It would be a lot easier to remember settings. Another little thing with that, I wish it were a stepless grinder so it didn't have these clicks as you're grinding. You have a little more control. And speaking of control, I think that some people may find themselves wanting a little more control in the espresso grinding range on this grinder, but since it's designed for everything from really coarse filter to espresso, you have less control in the espresso range. I still had no problems dialing in, but I can see how someone wanting to get this super precision grinding with this grinder might have some issues. All right, so we've gone over all the features and things I like and dislike about this grinder. So the final question is who is this grinder for? I think it's for someone looking for a really high quality home grinder that is well built, reliable, and you can just fill the hopper, dial in a coffee, whether it's on filter or espresso, and know that you're going to get really great grinds at that setting. And I think this grinder is great for that. I would put it up there with the higher end Mazur and compact grinders designed for home use. It made really, really great espresso. I would love to have this grinder at my home as my dedicated espresso grinder. So that's everything about the Fiorenzato F4 All Ground. I want to give a big shout out again to Chris's Coffee for loaning me this grinder and an espresso machine to work with. Link for them will be in the description below for everything you could ever need coffee-wise. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy brewing.